Konoha village. Border zone. Yakumojing opened his somewhat confused eyes and started to prepare the morning food, milk, fried eggs and bread. He is a transmigrator, and he has been transmigrating for 3 days. It was a cold night and the original owner died inexplicably at home, went to the Pure Land or merged with his soul. The original owner's parents were ordinary Chunin from Konoha village, but they were actually cannon fodder. His golden finger awakened 3 days ago. It was not a tall system, but a very simple single-player interface. It was the little game that made him die suddenly. Daily task, weekly task along with crossing this game becomes more rudimentary, leaving only the most primitive personal interface and task system, as well as a little insignificant reward. Name, well Yakumo age, 7 Constitution, 3.3, Stamina, Resistance, Recovery, Strength, 2.7, Load, Attack, etc. Agility, 3.1, Neural Response, Running Speed, Intelligence, 4.2, Learning Ability, Mental Resistance. Immediately close the personal information bar, click on the daily task interface. This interface will refresh 3 tasks every day, and each task reward is a small amount of attribute points and 50 gold coins. Since the time of crossing is not Monday, there is no weekly task refreshed this week. As for the gold coins, Yakumo didn't find any specific use. After 3 days of hard work, he had 450 gold coins. Daily tasks 1, the beginning of a day is in the morning. Before 8 in the morning, complete a 5-kilometer jog. Reward, 50 gold coins, 0.1 constitution. Second, diligence can make up for one's clumsiness. Before 11 o'clock in the evening, complete the understanding and summary of the 2000 WORD Will of Fire. Reward, 50 gold coins, 0.1 strength. 3. The meaning of spring. Accept Mori Masako's bento and said to her, I like your bento the most. Reward, 50 gold coins, 0.1 intelligence. Even if he crossed the road, he couldn't change the essence of the game. Yakumo scolded him after eating a simple breakfast, and then started running in the morning after a simple warm-up. Breakfast, 7:40. The location of Yakumo's house is on the edge of Konoha, and not far away is the death forest of the Chunin examination. He trotted all the way to the door of the bookstore. At this time, the first task had become ready for submission. Submit the task. The heat flowed from the inside of the body to nourish the somewhat tired body. This heat flow came and disappeared faster, and disappeared completely in a few seconds. This wonderful feeling is like being in warm water, and then being massaged by countless pairs of gentle little hands. Bashi is very. If there is one word to describe this feeling, it is one word, cool. It was this thrill of getting stronger that became the driving force for Jing Yayun's liver-breaking mission. He dared to swear that this was definitely a trick to keep players in the game. After some haggling, he bought a copy of The Great Ninja, Sarutobi Hidden Legend for 120 taels. This was the reference material he needed when he went on a mission. At first, Yakumo tried to complete the task through some professional techniques, but the result was a failure of the task. Through a few observations, Yakumo found that some tasks are linked to the experience of the day, which is equivalent to some kind of prediction. This morning, the 3 generations of Hokage will preach the Will of Fire, and the task will naturally contain a small composition about the Will of Fire. A few days ago, in order to complete the task, he stayed up all night to fight how to survive alone in the wild, necessary professional qualities for ninjas, analysis report on the characteristics of Kunao and Shuriken. In the morning, 8.30 is the time when the 3 generations of Hokage Sarutobi Hyozan preached the Will of Fire in the auditorium. As a freshman entering the first year, he was given priority to bathe in the brilliance of the Will of Fire in the first few rows. Sarutobi Hyozan stood on the podium and began to briefly introduce himself. I learned from the 2nd generation of Hokage. Dr. Ninjutsu, Konoha village is the strongest. I know a little bit about all kinds of ninjutsu. Command and win the Second Ninja World War. Is this guy coming to Versailles? Yakumo couldn't help thinking in his heart as he looked at the impassioned Sarutobi Hiden who was introducing himself on the stage. Sarutobi Hiyazano let out a clear cough, looked around at the immature first-year students in the audience, and began to give a formal speech. The will of fire was proposed by the first generation of adults. Jing Yakumo's eyes brightened below, and he quickly took out his notebook and began to record, gradually showing deep admiration. As expected of a brainwashing expert in the ninja world. 2 hours later, Jing Yakumo couldn't help but sigh inwardly as he looked at the increasingly frenzied eyes around him. This also includes the study of success. In the blink of an eye, it was 12.30, and Sarutobi Hibiki announced his disbandment, but his face was rosy and showed no signs of fatigue. "Old man, it's just long-winded." The black-haired boy in the front row suddenly complained that it was Yakumo's classmate Sarabi Asuma who complained about the third Hokage in this tone. "Hey, Yakumo-kun, your bento." Mori Masako sat down next to Yakumo, took out an extremely delicate wooden food box, and the aroma spread through the gaps of the wooden box. Yakumo thanked him and stretched out his hand to take it. Task 3, Trigger. The 8 clouds changed slightly. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. I like your bento the most. Jing Yakumo smiled and opened the wooden box, swallowing the seaweed rice and the fragrant soup in the lunch box. Not far away, Kurane Yui turned around and chatted with Asuma Sarabi about the afternoon class. "It's all for the mission. Submit the task." "Hey, Yakumo, eat slowly." Mori Masako looked at Yakumo who was gobbling down and showed a smile. Since her parents passed away, she has not seen her partners so happy for a long time. Submit the task. The cool energy gathered in the brain, and Yakumo completed the strengthening in a few seconds. Today, on the first day of the ninja school, the class teacher will give out the chakra refining technique in the afternoon. In fact, Yakumo Jing's parents are both ninjas, and there are natural tips for chakra refining in the study, but refining chakra before the age of 6 will affect physical development. After school, Yakumo walked home with Mori Masako holding the recipe for chakra refining. Mori Masako's parents and Yakumo's parents are classmates. They stopped performing tasks more than 10 years ago. With the contacts they made when they were ninjas, they opened a ninja shop with no worries. "Yakumo, do you want to practice kunai throwing with me?" The two walked to the door silently. Mori Masako couldn't help but ask, eyes full of expectation. "No, I'm going to go home and try to refine chakra." Yakumo replied coldly, closed the door on his own, and walked to the dimly lit yard, ignoring the gradually resentful eyes of the girl behind him. He understands Moriyazi's feelings for the original owner, and the understanding he has accumulated since childhood. If anyone in this world can perceive his resurrection, that person must be Moriyazi. But the task is still to be done. After dinner, Yakumo memorized the theoretical knowledge taught by the teacher and immediately began to try to refine the chakra. The orphan can only rely on himself at the beginning. In the moment of extreme lack of security, he must grasp every possibility of becoming stronger. The data records that chakra, a mixture of spiritual and cellular energy, comes from the combination of the depths of the soul and 1.3 billion cells. The spirit sank into the body, feeling the flow of energy in the body. A tiny trace of chakra was born in the lower abdomen and began to circulate in the body. Everyone in this world has a certain amount of chakra in their bodies, but only those who can mobilize and accumulate chakra are qualified as ninjas. It wasn't until it was pitch black outside that Yakumo opened his eyes. The meager chakra in his body seemed to dissipate in the next second. That was the result of his 2 hours of hard work. Although his parents gave him the talent to become a ninja, this talent was not poor. Personal information: name, well Yakumo, age, 7, stamina, 3.4, stamina, resistance, recovery, strength, 2.3, load, attack, etc. Agility, 3.1, neural response, running. Intelligence, 4.2, learning ability, mental resistance, chakra, 0.05, 10 points promoted to genin, personal skills passive, chakra refinement acceleration gold coins, 550 with the practice of chakra refining. A brand new skill interface appeared in the Pit Father minigame, and Yakumo's spiritual sense touched acceleration slightly. Whether it consumes 100 gold coins to speed up this item. Note, the accelerated process is irreversible and cannot be refunded. Sure. 100 gold coins are deducted. I wish players a happy game, and create happiness with your heart. Accompanied by the mechanical electronic sound, the meager chakra in Yakumo's body suddenly doubled several times, as if he had been condensing chakra for 24 hours. You must know that before the age of 10, the safe range to prevent the depletion of the body from refining chakra every day is about 3 hours, and the major ninjas doubled this time with the blood of Otsutsuki and secret medicine, but it is impossible for 24 hours continuous refinement. Liver-busting minigame, YYDS. Accelerate. 400 gold coins were instantly deducted, and the amount of chakra in the body doubled continuously again. There was no need to eat a lot, no fatigue, no overdraft, and the amount of chakra increased sharply. The galloping chakra always reminds Yakumo that all this is not an illusion, it belongs to him. Jing Yakumo's talent. In a few seconds, his chakra volume has reached 3 points. Every day, you can get 150 gold coins, which can be accelerated once. 24 hours of continuous practice, which is equal to 0.6 units of chakra. In this way, after 10 days, he will have the amount of chakra possessed by the regular Jinin, but he will not be able to have the combat power of the Jinin, and there is no comparison with those geniuses of Shitanla, Chaela, and Xian Cha. It's still too weak. Yakumo turned on the lamp, took out the notes he took during the day, and started the third mission. Of course, he also needed to read the reference book The Great Ninja, Sarutobi Hibiki. The Will of Fire. The first generation of adults proposed, the second generation of adults perfected. It was carried forward by the third generation of adults, and today I heard a lot of insights from the third generation of adults. 3 generations of Hokage-sama's narration made me understand that young people like us are the future hope of Konoha Hidden Village, and the older generation should trust and protect us. The sacrifice of the older generation is not meaningless, but it will inspire young people and become the hope for the rise of Konoha Hidden Village. I decided to start learning from tomorrow, the 3 generations of Hokage-sama, and work hard for the prosperity of Konoha Hidden Village. Summary: where the leaves are flying, the fire will continue to grow. The fire will continue to illuminate the village and allow the new leaves to sprout. Stretching his lazy waist, Yakumo placed the perception and analysis of the will of fire in the most conspicuous position on the table. This thing will be of great use in the future. It was still early, and Yakumo found the ninjutsu notebooks left by his parents. The 2 notebooks, which were badly damaged and even yellowed, were the biggest heritage of their family. There are several ways of practicing ninjutsu. His father is a water-type chakra ninja, his mother is an earth-type chakra ninja, and Yakumo himself is a water-type and earth-type ninja. Water Bomb Clevel Ninjutsu, born out of Blevel Water Ninjutsu Water Dragon Bomb, the number of knots is 3, Shen, Wei, Ugly, the cohesive fist-sized water ball slams into the enemy. Earthen Wall is a Blevel defensive ninjutsu. The number of knots is 3, Chen, Si, and Mo. When the earth element chakra is injected into the earth, it forms a defensive barrier. After thinking for a while, Yakumo began to carefully read the training method of water bombs. After all, the best defense is to defeat the enemy. On the other hand, his current chakra is simply not enough to support the use of the earth flow wall. After half an hour, he felt that the learning efficiency had dropped, and Yakumo received the reward of Task 3. Familiar energy poured out from the depths of his brain, as if he was in a hot spring. After regaining his spirits, Yakumo lowered his head and continued to practice water bombs. With Yuyin guiding the chakras in his body to rotate Shen, Mo, and Ugly, a water polo the size of a ping-pong ball appeared under Yakumo's palm for a second and shattered. Fail. Tried again, failed. Failure, continuous failure. 5 consecutive peerless. 8 super ghosts. ATMD, fight another day. Depressed, Yakumo pulled out the kunao beside him and threw it at the circular target on the wall. Kunao drew a nearly perfect energy curve in midair. Steady on the target, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com is just a long way from the red heart. I really don't know how the freaks of the Uchiha clan managed to play with kunao. The third ninja war 7 years later. There is still time. Yakumo lay on the hard wooden bed and gradually fell asleep. Under the pillow was a cold light of kunao. This world has never been safe. The next day, Yakumo clicked on daily tasks as usual. 1. The beginning of a day is in the morning. Complete a 5-kilometer jog before 7:30 in the morning. Reward, 50 gold, 0.1 strength burning red. Shout out to red-haired girls that red hair is the most beautiful color. Reward, 50 gold coins, 0.1 constitution diligence can make up for clumsiness. Summarize the process of chakra refining. Reward, 50 gold coins, 0.1 intelligence. On the way to the morning run, Yakumo recalled the second daily task in his mind. The red-haired girl should be Uzumaki Kushina. Is it really safe to rashly contact the nine-tailed people Zuri? Anbu or Root must protect the nine-tailed Zulai around the clock. Is it worth the risk for 50 gold coins? You can try. Yakumo, what are you thinking? Mori Yoshiko followed Yakumo worriedly. Since Yakumo's parents died, he has become more and more closed, and he has become more and more indifferent to himself, but as his only friend Mori Yoshiko feels that he has an obligation to help him out of the predicament. The girl's eyes gradually firm, the mere difficulties are not worth mentioning. What? I mean, red hair is the most beautiful color. Out of the corner of the eye, the red-haired girl was sitting on the round high chair of Yul Ramen and eating noodles. Yakumo shouted decisively. Task 2, complete. Eat, why don't you eat? I'll take this one. Uzumaki Kushina said with a bold smile, patting her flat chest. Yakumo stared helplessly at the tonkatsu-flavored ramen in front of him, and he didn't dare to move. The matter had to start from a few minutes ago. After the mission was completed, Yakumo's first reaction was to withdraw quickly, but the speed of Jounin was so fast that before he could react, Uzumaki Kushina came to him. Little brother, you looked at me twice within 10 seconds, and what you said just now was deliberately told to me, right? Uzumaki Kushina smiled and pressed his right hand on Yakumo's shoulder. He lost his ability to react with just one click. Even if she was not malicious, the massive chakra suppressed her spontaneously. Definitely not. Yakumo responded with lack of confidence. This is the perception ability of the nine-tailed buff, and even a slight swipe was discovered. For the sake of you being so discerning, I'd like to invite you to eat one of my favorite food. Uzumaki Kushina said happily. Are you happy because you are being praised for your beautiful hair color? Yakumo thought, although he was reluctant, but he couldn't resist the power of Uzumaki Kushina, so he could only be wrapped up and kept approaching the noodle stall. Uncle Yul, 2 servings of tonkatsu-flavored ramen. Yakumo took a peek at Mori Masako, who was at a loss, and smelled the fragrance diffused from the tonkatsu soup. Eat. Looking at the empty bowl of noodles a few minutes later, Yakumo couldn't help thinking of that sentence. It's really fragrant. Why are you peeking at me? Uzumaki Kushina asked Yakumo, wiping the oil from the corner of his mouth. It must be admitted that Uzumaki Kushina is very beautiful, with a slender body that is just right without losing a sense of strength, especially those long white and flawless legs. This. I see, you don't fall in love with me at first sight, right? It's a pity that my sister already has a boyfriend. Uzumaki Kushina said to herself. That's... No. I'm going to be late for class. Goodbye, big sister. Yakumo pulled Mori Masako's wrist and ran towards the academy, like a boy whose heart was broken. Looking at the back of Yakumo fleeing, Kushina showed a beautiful arc at the corner of her mouth. This is the second time someone has complimented her red hair so sincerely, and the first is her current boyfriend Minato Nami. Brush. A blonde-haired boy appeared behind Uzumaki Kushina, with a handsome and gentle face and a gentle smile. It seems Kushina is in a good mood today. Just met a very interesting boy. Who? After running a few hundred meters and realizing that Kushina was not chasing after him, Bayman stopped. The so-called being late was just an excuse. I hope I won't be targeted. Submit the task. A familiar feeling poured out from the depths of his body, and Yakumo was deeply fascinated by this stronger feeling, and a smile appeared on his face unconsciously. So Yakumo really likes that kind of girl. Mori Masako spoke softly, and for some reason Yakumo heard a bit of stern coldness from it. Of course not. Yakumo replied solemnly, his tone full of convincing sincerity. The first-year ninja in the class is named Keisuke Shimizu. He is a rather stern middle-aged man with sharp eyes like an eagle. Yakumo speculates that he should have left the battlefield not long ago, and he has a very important post-war stress response. The 4 classes in the morning are all very basic knowledge, including geography, history, distribution of forces, and brainwashing classes that will always be loyal to Konoha and Hokage. Yakumo took notes in class seriously. After all, these courses might save his life in the future. For example, in the class on the analysis of ninjutsu types, if Asuma Sarutobi had listened carefully to the class, he would not have failed to recognize in the future that the CG Pinksyu used by Haiden was a curse-killing secret technique. Thinking of this, Yakumo began to listen more attentively, and took a peek at Asuma, who was whispering to Yuhaka-kane. Feiduan, well done. To Yakumo's surprise, on the first day of school, the head teacher, Keisuke Shimizu, arranged an in-class test in which the students played against each other. Test requirements: you can't use weapons. If you are knocked down, you will fail. You are not allowed to surrender without a fight. Keisuke Shimizu's original words were, "Ninjas in Konoha Hidden Village don't need cowards." After eating Mori Masako's love lunch with a blank face, Yakumo went to the training ground outside the classroom and watched the battle catalogue on the wall. Among them, Hitaki Kakashi vs Sarabi Asuma Uchiha Henjian vs Hyaga Shinkai Masami Hyaga vs Asuka Uchiha. Yakumo saw his name near the end. His opponent was Kenta Xiaoyuan, who was also a civilian ninja. Sarutobi Asuma usually looks like a fool, but when he collided with Hitaki Kakashi, Yakumo only understood what the ninja clan was. The agility of the two must be above 7 points. As for the strength, they may be slightly inferior, but they will never be lower than 5 points. In other words, at present, these two are equivalent to the mountains that Yakumo cannot defeat. Although Sarutobi Asuma is not bad, Hitaki Kakashi is undoubtedly more evil. After a dozen strokes, he threw Sarutobi Asuma to the ground. The two forged a sign of reconciliation. After starting several rounds of tests one after another, Yakumo opened his eyes and understood the gap between the ninjas. Of course, this gap is more due to physical strength. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. The next group of students: Xiaoyuan Jiantai and Jing Yayun. Come on, just admit defeat if you really can't, and it's okay if you lose. Anyway, you're not good at fighting since you were a child. Mori Masako said in a low voice. Okay, I get it. In my memory, the original owner was really not good at fighting. It seems that this battle can only be given up. After all, personality transformation also requires a process. The knot, the seal of opposition. Please enlighten me. The eyes of the two collided in midair. Xiao Yuan Jiantai's skin was dark, and he looked stronger than Yakumo's body now. After the battle started, Yakumo clenched his fist and punched Xiao Yuan Jiantai's shoulder, but he didn't want to be easily dodged by the opponent, so he slammed into Yakumo's chest with his backhand. Balance. The opponent directly seized the opportunity of Yakumo's loss of balance, and suddenly pushed him down. When he fell, Yakumo grabbed Xiao Yuan Jiantai with his left hand like lightning. As expected, chakra has not been successfully extracted. Although the chakra extraction method has been issued, few civilian students can extract chakra overnight due to the lack of guidance. This is also one of the reasons why he chose to hide. After all, there was not a trace of chakra in his body during the entrance test 2 days ago. The crowd watching the game burst into laughter, apparently laughing at how easily Yakumo was dealt with. The result was as perfect as Yakumo expected. Although the character of the civilian genius is good, the most likely place of return can only be the root or the anbu. These two are not considered by Yakumo. After the seal of reconciliation of annoyance, Yakumo returned to the viewing position, and there were several battles that followed, some of which were even worse than Yakumo's performance. Keisuke Shimizu strode onto the podium, his sharp eyes glanced at everyone in the audience, like an eagle patrolling his territory, and then said loudly, "Your opponents today are basically your opponents in the next 6 years of test classes. Of course, there may be changes in special circumstances. Here, I want to say that Hitaki Kakashi has performed very well. He is indeed the son of Lord White Fang, of course Sarutobi. Saima also performed very well and did not embarrass the 3 generations of adults." The warmth that suddenly appeared when those eagle-like eyes fell on Kakashi and Sarutobi Asma made Yakumo a little stunned. This opening is like licking a dog. When the eyes fell on Yakumo, the extremely cold winter came again. "I am very dissatisfied with the performance of several of you. The results of this in-class test will affect the final grade of the first grade. I hope your performance in the next test won't be so bad, otherwise you won't even think about going to the second grade. Get out of class." Keisuke Shimizu strode out of the classroom, the inexplicable pressure slowly dissipated, and everyone surrounded Kakashi slowly walking out of the classroom. The character of genius and ruthless boy made him very attractive to fans and dogs. But they will finally understand that Hitaki Kakashi is the man they will never get. After all, his life already belongs to the of 5 and 5. Let's go. Yakumo turned around and said to his little follower, Masako Mori. Really? Who doesn't have a little fangirl? On the way, Yakumo silently recalled what happened today. When the head teacher was licking the dog during the day, he first mentioned White Fang, then the 3 generations of Hokage, and the members of the ninja took the initiative to befriend Kakashi. What kind of prestige has Konoha Shirogane, whose strength laid the second victory in the Shinobi War, reached? My father fought bravely to kill the enemy abroad, which became a nightmare for all countries and made the enemy terrified. The son has swept the contemporary era, and his talent is better than that of his father. Such people are all from the Hitaki family. Since ancient times, the sharp-edged people have only 2 fates: they have been moving forward to reach the peak that is untouchable by the world, or they have died under the calculations of those in power. Fortunately, none of this has anything to do with Yakumo. As long as he is far away from the whirlpool of the storm, he is enough. After all, he is only a little transparent with low strength, but he has no value to be used. Do you want to practice together today? Mori Masako asked expectantly in front of the door. Next time definitely. Yakumo pushed open the door directly, walked in, and his expression changed from indifferent to alert, and then returned to calm and composed in an instant. Someone at home has come here. Even if the intruder has recovered as much as possible, there are still minor differences. Yakumo took 2 steps to open the drawer, and the more than 2 million pensions inside were a lot of money, and instantly realized that the intruder was not seeking money. In the morning, I met Uzumaki Kushina, and at noon my home was turned over. Is this how much Konoha's senior management attaches great importance to Kyuubi Renzulai? Of course, the owner of the wild beast is worried that the beast will be approached and used by others, causing huge losses. I hope that this thing can play a role. It's not worth the rainbow fart that he took the 800-character Sarutobi Hizen with some private goods. He casually threw the school bag on the table, and Yakumo began to prepare dinner. After half an hour, a pot of hot curry chicken was freshly baked. After the meal, Yakumo came to the hospital and started to practice ninjutsu according to the records in the notes, forming seals, mobilizing chakras, and releasing chakras. The water were condensed one by one, and before they were shot, they turned into water splashes and splashed down in Yakumo's palm. The practice of ninjutsu was more difficult than he imagined. 2 hours later, when the chakra was exhausted, he mixed the remaining chicken curry with rice and ate it. He lit the lamp and began to write a summary and analysis of the chakra refining. After 2 hours, submit the task. The intelligence has improved again, and many inspirations have emerged for the cultivation of water bombs. After practicing chakra refining, even if there is no deliberate refining, the body will instinctively replenish the consumed chakra. Yakumo stood in the moonlight, and went to the courtyard to continue practicing clever ninjutsu water bombs according to the notes. Now he can perfectly condense a small ball the size of a fist, but he has not figured out how to generate momentum to shoot the water ball. The chakra explosion produces thrust. Yakumo is enlightened. With a touch, the water polo exploded directly in Yakumo's hands, and the water splash instantly wet him. As the saying goes, failure is the mother of success. Come again. The seal is formed, the chakra is mobilized, and the water polo appears. Chakra erupted, touched, covered in water. After doing this dozens of times, Yakumo lay unwillingly on the steps of the entrance, soaking wet with expressions like being favored by dozens of big men, and like a dead fish swept up on the beach by a big wave. Sometimes, the 6 successful relatives do not recognize each other. Yakumo just lay on the steps, as if recalling a dream that had passed away, and half an hour later, his body re-extracted some chakras. Seal and mobilize chakra. Inject water polo, chakra erupts. With a swoosh, the water polo shot out like a sharp sword, hitting the wooden fence with large water droplets. Yakumo's eyes lit up. Success. Ding, personal skills has been successfully entered. Active, water bomb entry level 1/100 acceleration. Yakumo looked at the skill panel that suddenly appeared, and was shocked. Could his golden fingers also speed up the learning of ninjutsu? Heartbeat is worse than action. Accelerate. Successful acceleration. UU reading www.uuganshu.com. 100 gold coins have been deducted. In an instant, a large amount of knowledge poured into his mind, which was the memory of his continuous practice of water bombs. In his memory, he saw that he had failed countless times and finally successfully cast water bombs. In the future, the memory will not fail, but the speed of casting is extremely slow. At this time, the proficiency on the panel is increasing rapidly. Active, water bomb entry level 10/100. A single acceleration gives him 9 proficiency. Yakumo held back his excitement and didn't try to use water bombs. He used the last 100 gold coins to strengthen the chakra refining technique during a simple rinse, and the chakra in his body skyrocketed again. It would be good to fail a few more times in the future. After all, civilian ninja students with poor talent have tried many times but have been unable to master ninjutsu. This is a normal situation. The lights in Hokage's office are already bright, and Sarutobi Hizen is working hard at work, occasionally moving his wrists, lamenting that the years are not forgiving. In a pile of documents, there are investigation reports about Yakumo. Grandpa and grandparents were the first residents of Konoha, and their parents died in the Second Ninja World War. They never left Konoha Hidden Village to rule out the possibility of spies. The route of the morning run was fixed for a few days, and encountering ins-level surveillance person was a complete accident. The final conclusion is that the combat ability is extremely poor, the ninjutsu learning ability is extremely poor, and the vigilance is extremely poor. This child's understanding of the will of fire is unparalleled among his contemporaries. Between the lines, he also admires the old man very much. He is a good seedling. It's a pity that his talent is too poor, otherwise he can cultivate it. Sarutobi Hizen immediately stuffed the document into the airtight pocket and stopped paying attention. Konoha 39, June 7, Monday. In the last 4 days of last week, Yakumo was worried about Anbu's surveillance and did not do anything out of the ordinary. Running in the morning, taking notes in class, hiding in the corner in the afternoon and flipping through books, and going home in the evening is doing homework and practicing water bomb ninjutsu. Personal panel name, well Yakumo age, 7 constitution, 3.9, stamina, resistance, recovery, strength, 2.6, load, attack, etc. Agility, 3.8, neural response, running. Intelligence, 4.3, learning ability, mental resistance, chakra, 6, 10 points promoted to genin, personal skills passive, chakra refinement acceleration active, water bomb primer 48/100 acceleration gold coins, none. Now he can use the water bomb normally, but the power is still unsatisfactory. At most, it can only cause people to lose their balance and fall to the ground, and it is impossible to achieve effective killing. During this period of time, the continuous improvement of his physique has changed his slender body a little, and his muscles have gradually become more bulging lines. Today is Monday, which means weekly task refresh. Skipping the daily tasks above, Yakumo directly clicked on the long-awaited weekly tasks. Diligence can make up for one's clumsiness. Borrow 3 books from the library within a week, read and write a summary of no less than 5,000 words. Quest reward, 0.5 intelligence, 150 gold. A gentleman is good at using weapons. Learn the swordsmanship mastered by Kakashi and successfully get started. Quest reward, 0.5 strength, 150 gold. 3 times every day to reflect on my body. Keep a diary of no less than 500 words before going to bed every day for 7 days. Quest reward, 0.5 agility, 150 gold. Note, after completing all weekly tasks, you can receive an additional 500 gold coins and 0.5 free attribute points. It really deserves to be a once in a lifetime little game. 3 books a week, 15,000 words after reading, 3,500 words in diary. 14,000 words of course summary. Gan. MD, who keeps a diary. After eating breakfast helplessly, Yakumo pushed open the door and just happened to meet Mori Masako, who was going out. The two started their daily morning run side by side. Driven by the reward, Yakumo walked like a fly. Did you write yesterday's homework, Yakumo? Mori Masako suddenly asked during the run. I didn't write. Yakumo shook his head. He was very busy at night, all right, refining chakra, practicing ninjutsu, and writing class summaries. How could he have time for homework? Hey, I knew you definitely didn't have time to do your homework. I wrote one for you, by the way, and I used your font. Thank you, then I'll treat you to ramen. Yakumo didn't reject Mori Masako's kindness. After all, if he didn't do his homework often, he would have to spend time dealing with Keisuke Shimizu, the head teacher, which would disrupt his plans. It happened that the end of their morning run was Yul Ramen, and their slightly hurried breathing quickly recovered smoothly. No thanks. If you refuse, then I can't accept your help. Yakumo smiled. In the class, Yakumo opened the handwritten note, and the font in the note was indeed the same as his own. I didn't expect that the mediocre little valet would have this kind of talent. He quickly shook his head to banish dangerous thoughts. Yakumo retracted his gaze, and at this moment a pair of rough hands were placed on his shoulders. The owner of the hands was Hiraga Yuanchu, the representative figure among the commoners of this session, with a physique around 5 o'clock. "Is this today's homework? I just didn't write it. Now it belongs to me. Do you have an opinion?" Hiratani Hara lowered his voice and threatened Yakumo's ear. "No." Yakumo's expression did not change. He handed over the notebook in his hand to Hiraga Yuanchu. Another world version of campus bullying. Useless. Hiratani Yuanchu took the note, and then sneered, and the surrounding classmates looked at Yakumo with strange eyes. Liwei. For Yakumo, Hiratani was never a problem at first, but the real problem was to solve the influence he brought later, and how to learn swordsmanship from Kakashi Hatake. Due to the lack of assignments, Yakumo was scolded by Keisuke Shimizu, many people cast sympathetic eyes, and many people were gloating. After eating the lunch box, Yakumo borrowed 3 books from the library as planned. On Medical Ninja, on the function of medical ninja, basic medical knowledge. Since God has given him the chakra attributes of water and soil, is there any reason not to practice medical ninjutsu? By the way, the authors of 2 of these 3 books are Tsunade, the granddaughter of Kishao Hashima, the legendary Sunin, the strongest medical ninjutsu in the ninja world. The afternoon classes are free activities. Most of the students will practice in the training ground, or ask 2 or 3 good friends to compete with each other. Yakumo sat on the steps and read basic medical knowledge. Only when he roamed in the ocean of knowledge, he deeply understood the shallowness of his knowledge. Unexpectedly, the wild grass that can be seen everywhere on the roadside can be mashed and used as a hemostatic agent in an emergency. Not far away, Kakashi kept waving his unshaved practice knife. Yakumo deliberately counted the total of 24 poses. If the 24 moves are split and recombined, a new move will be formed, which is really subtle. Yakumo sighed in his heart, recording Kakashi's moves as carefully as possible. It didn't take long for him to find that he couldn't remember. Kakashi's speed was too fast and he obviously had a deep grasp of swordsmanship. He was no longer bound by the inherent order, but deformed at will. Yakumo spent the afternoon stealing lessons and only memorized the 4 incomplete moves. The bell remembered that the students left school in a hurry with their school bags on their backs, but Kakashi was obsessed with swordsmanship. Yakumo just took this opportunity to steal a few tricks from his teacher, and Moriyazu next to him quietly got up and left. "Hey, Wood! Kakashi is out of school!" Uchiha Obito shouted at Kakashi with 2 school bags, and beside him stood Rin Yuan with short purple hair. The smooth knife light stopped abruptly, and Yakumo lowered his head, pretending to be reading a book. "Didn't you agree to play hide and seek after school today?" Uchiha Obito complained with some dissatisfaction. "Come on!" Kakashi responded simply, put away the practice short blade, carried his school bag and ran to his friends. "Hey, where did Masako go?" In the alley next to the Ninja Academy, this is usually the place where students resolve their conflicts, commonly known as the relief platform. At this time, Ping Guan was curled up on the ground, with obvious shoe prints on his face, and several of his younger brothers were lying on the ground in pain. Mori Masako quickly took out the notebook during the day from Hiratani Yuanchu's backpack and put it in her school bag, slowly crouched down and said with a smile. "Hiratani-san, if you bully Yakumo again, I promise that the next shot will be heavier than this time." At night, the stars are bright. In the small training ground in the hospital, Yakumo held the short blade he bought at night and began to imitate Hatake Kakashi's moves like cats and tigers. The 24 swordsmanships used by Kakashi can be roughly divided into 6 categories: stabbing, slashing, picking, cutting, splitting, and horizontal. Compared with Kakashi's smoothness and naturalness, the part for slashing and picking seems to be a bit out of place. Kakashi's swordsmanship takes a quick route, so the weapon chooses a light and short blade, abandoning the oppression of defense and slashing, in exchange for more direct killing. In skill rather than strength, more emphasis on intention rather than moves. But even if Yakumo understood this, he couldn't recover the sword technique Kakashi used at all. The skills in those details could not be obtained from observation without guidance. No, don't be impatient. There are still 6 days. At noon the next day, he borrowed Introduction to the Basics of Swordsmanship, How to Use Knives, and brief talk about swordsmanship techniques from the library at noon. He planned to temporarily give up the study of the basics of medical treatment, and instead devote all his energy to swordsmanship. In the afternoon, I still pretended to read a book to observe Kakashi practicing the knife, and the next day I observed him and got more insights. It is worth mentioning that today Hiragoyuan didn't take action to Yakumo's homework for some unknown reason. Instead, he was scolded by the class teacher Keisuke Shimizu for not doing his homework, and was thrown out of the station. At night, Yakumo practiced the simplest basics of swordsmanship at the training ground: slashing, straight slashing, rungs, progressive slashes, retreating slashes, dashing straight stabs, and horizontal slashes. After studying Introduction to the Basics of Swordsmanship, Yakumo Mingyu learns anything is like building a building. Only by casting a good foundation can it continue to expand upwards. Assuming that Kakashi's swordsmanship is on the 3rd floor, and he is a swordsman, even if he imitates as much as possible, he can only end up at the level of a donkey's mouth and a horse's mouth, because he has no underlying foundation to support this kind of simulation. In the training ground in the academy, Yakumo was wearing a thin shirt, and the shadows of the swords were chaotic. He practiced the basic 8 moves again and again. Call. The sound of rapid breathing sounded in the training ground. Yakumo's arm gradually became heavy, but he still insisted on gritting his teeth. In the book, it is recorded that when swinging the sword, the breathing should be kept at a constant speed, and it should not be disordered. The frequency of breathing should be adjusted in accordance with the sword in hand. Although this method cannot keep fit and strengthen the body, at least it will not cause trouble during cultivation. Of course, it's easy to say, but it's extremely difficult to do. With the passage of time, Yakumo's arms, waist, and even his legs have become very heavy, like countless bags of lead. It became more and more difficult to maintain the stability of the breathing, and finally the breathing suddenly became disordered. After Yakumo completed the standard downward split, he put the knife in the scabbard, sat cross-legged between his legs to recover his strength, and adjusted his breathing by the way. Sitting and meditating, I felt the shape, weight, and sharpness of the knife on my leg. The book said that it was an extension of the weapon's body, so don't treat the knife as an external object, but as a part of myself. A dozen minutes later, Yakumo picked up the glass and took a big gulp of cold water, then got up again and started swinging the knife to exercise. He was serious about the task. As the Emperor of the Liver, at the end of the Way of the Liver, he has created countless legends and records, which also led to his obsessive obsession with tasks, which directly led to his sudden death in his previous life. Once, twice, 3 times. Until he lost his breath again and collapsed to the ground. After the rest, he got up again, training the boy's eyes to be tough, with a hint of crazy paranoia. The next day, Yakumo dragged his sore body and started a painful and happy morning run. He didn't return to normal until the warm energy of the task submission washed away most of the soreness. On Wednesday, Yakumo practiced the basic 8 poses as usual at night. After 2 days and 8 hours of exercise, he has become very proficient and natural. The breeze blew the surrounding weeds and blew the sweat off Yakumo's body. In the training ground where no one cared, the young man kept accumulating and becoming stronger. June 10, Thursday, night. Training course. This time, Yakumo didn't start training directly, but clicked on the skill panel that he hadn't seen for a long time. Personal skills active, Water Bomb Primer 50/100 Acceleration Basic Swordsmanship Introduction 60/100 Acceleration Gold Coins, 400 Divine Sense moved slightly, tapped the word acceleration on the back of the basic knife surgery, and the 400 gold coins disappeared instantly 4 times in a row. Making happiness with your heart, I wish you a happy game. The memory of a lot of practice swordsmanship rushed into his mind. Under the impact of the massive memory, Yakumo was stunned in place. When he came back to his senses and touched the knife on his leg again, he felt a very familiar feeling. The skill interface represents the entry of basic swordsmanship, and the proficiency increases rapidly until it reaches 100. The word entry begins to become illusory and is gradually replaced by a new realm. Active. Basic swordsmanship is skilled at 0/200 acceleration at this moment. He seemed to break some kind of imprisonment and enter a higher level. Yakumo opened his eyes and clenched his fists slightly, as if this breakthrough made his body stronger and his vitality more vigorous. With this question in mind, Yakumo opened the personal panel. Personal panel name: Well, Yakumo age, 7 Constitution, 4.8, Stamina, Resistance, Recovery, Strength, 3.5, Load, Attack, etc. Agility, 4.0, Neural Response, Running. UU reading www.uuganshu.com, Intelligence, 4.3, Learning Ability, Mental Resistance, Chakra, 6.2, 10 points promoted to Genin. This. Yakumo was a little stunned. The breakthrough in basic swordsmanship increased his physique and strength by 0.4 each, which was equivalent to the harvest of 2.5 days of daily tasks, which was a pleasant surprise. This improvement should be a dominant bonus brought by the breakthrough of proficiency. After all, he did not get the reward of attribute points when he accelerated the basic sword technique with gold coins yesterday. After taking a few sips of cold water, Yakumo stood up again. This time, he no longer waved the knife in any strangeness. The shadow of the knife flashed even a bit of beauty, and the chill made one's back cold. Under the action of the breeze, a withered and yellow leaf flew from a distance. Yakumo's eyes focused, and the knife in both hands suddenly slashed down. The knife light swept across, and the yellow leaves were directly torn apart in the air. Yakumo let out a long breath and shook his head. He was not satisfied with the result. On Wednesday afternoon, he had seen it with his own eyes. Hatake Kakashi slashed the flying leaves with a knife. The ports were straight and smooth, and the rest of the leaves were intact. That is the perfect slashing. The extreme violence can be controlled in a line with ease. Only that kind of slashing can cut off the armor, inflict heavy damage and kill the ninja inside. He still has a long way to go. Now his headache is how to get the sword technique from Kakashi and cultivate to the entry level in the remaining 3 days. Is it the only way to find a chance to talk to Kakashi? Give up. It is impossible to give up. Friday. After breakfast, Yakumo went out for a morning run, and just met Yoshiko Mori, who was planning to go out, and started exercising together. Yakumo, you seem to be a little different. What's the difference? Yakumo's heart tightened. Sure enough, it was still the childhood sweetheart of the original owner. Did you see the clue? Yakumo began to quickly think in his mind how to wait. Excuse. Yakumo passed through the crowd with an expressionless face, but he was thinking in his heart where exactly the clues were revealed. Because of his recent refusal to train with her, or because of his recent attitude towards her? Or is it because he has recently increased his attention to Yuhiko? Your temperament today is different from yesterday. Moriyazu continued after thinking for a while. It became very sharp, just like Kakashizen. Maybe it's because I recently made a small breakthrough in swordsmanship. You know, I have been practicing swordsmanship during this time. Yakumo explained, but he was quietly relieved. But didn't you only practice swordsmanship for 4 days? Moriyazu continued to ask. Maybe I'm a swordsman genius. Yakumo laughed and then asked. Can others see the change in my temperament? What kind of genius are you, a genius who hasn't won a fight since childhood? Moriyazu rolled his eyes. As for others, they might not care about your change at all. That's good. Today, this incident gave him a reminder. As he continues to practice swordsmanship, his temperament will become more and more sharp. If he wants to continue to be a little transparent, he must solve this problem. After all, as the amount of chakra increases, it will become more difficult to hide himself. The massive amount of chakra in perceptual ninjutsu is as conspicuous as a lighthouse watching in the dark. If only there was a ninjutsu that could hide oneself. Yakumo sighed in a low voice, secretly deciding in his heart that he should be more cautious about improving his strength in the future. Mori Masako heard Yakumo's sigh and her eyes moved rapidly, and after a while, she seemed to have made up her mind. Our family happens to have ninjutsu to hide yourself. I'll bring it out tonight for you to practice. How could your family have this kind of ninjutsu? Yakumo asked after hearing the words without agreeing for a while. A few years ago, my dad got the secret book from the mist ninja assassin on the battlefield. After successful cultivation, he can change his personal temperament, appearance, chakra fluctuations, etc. It's not very good. I'll exchange my secret ninjutsu and water bombs with you, okay? You're not talking about the technique that Uncle Jing uses to water flowers, right? Don't you know that ninjutsu has no attack power at all? Is it the biggest use for watering flowers? Yakumo was stunned. There must be some misunderstanding here. Haha, no, you really don't know. Suddenly the girl gave a silver bell-like laughter, and there was a cheerful atmosphere around the two. Okay, stop laughing, I want to be quiet. Ming Ming. That notebook said it was powerful, so how could it only be used to water flowers in Dad's hands? A few days ago, he tried the power of a water bomb, which was enough to knock an adult flying. Could it be? Dad, he didn't learn to understand? Yakumo began to look forward to how stunned Mori Masako would be when he truly saw the power of water bombs. In the afternoon, free training class. Yakumo found a good position and was about to watch Kaka practice his swordsmanship, but he didn't want the other party to come straight over. The visitor is not good. You peaked for 4 days, are you learning swordsmanship? Kakashi asked straightforwardly. Yakumo was slightly stunned. This is too direct. Murder is awe-inspiring. It felt like if Kakashi couldn't get his answer, he would draw his sword in the next moment. Stealing other people's inheritance in Konoha village is a big taboo. At this time, you must not admit it, even if you kill it, you can't admit it. Behind Yakumo, Mori Masako clenched her fists subconsciously, as if she was ready to attack at any time. This is a very serious accusation. I didn't peek at your practice, I was just reading a book. Yakumo raised the book on his lap and said to Kakashi. You lied. Kakashi replied, his eyes under the broken silver-white hair had no emotion, as if he was looking at a dead person. Are you going to do it? Yakumo secretly asked, as if any explanation became pale under that death-like gaze. If you want to learn, I will teach you. Kakashi kept his words concise as always, but the content caught Runyu a little off guard. Why do you think I want to learn swordsmanship? You are eager to become stronger, this is an opportunity. Kakashi continued with a meaning. I heard about you, and someone robbed you of your homework. I think you want to call it back yourself, right? Is it out of the pity of the strong for the weak? Yakumo suddenly became silent. This may also be Kakashi's trap to admit that he has learned swordsmanship. Probably not. Yakumo quickly denied. Kakashi is still a very decent person at present, which has a lot to do with the education of his father Sakumo Hatake. Shouldn't that kind of sword technique be a secret? Why do you want to teach me? Yakumo's mood gradually became excited as he kept asking questions. The so-called esoteric tradition is the core strength inheritance of the ninja clan. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com is the root of the ninja clan's strength, and it is naturally not allowed to be learned by outsiders. The secret of Hatake is divided into moves, breathing, steps, and chakra modes. The former is just a move and it's not a big deal. Only the chakra mode is fundamental. The other 3 are just more subtle moves. What Yakumo didn't know was that when White Fang made a name for himself, his fighting style had been thoroughly researched, and his moves, steps, and even breathing were no longer a secret. Isn't it normal for classmates to help each other? Then I will learn. Yakumo no longer hesitated. With only 2 days left until the mission deadline, he could not give up this opportunity no matter what, even if he had to take a certain risk. He decided to take a gamble. Come with me with your knife. I didn't bring it. Didn't your swordsman master tell you that in order to develop a sense of the sword must always be separated from the body? Forget it, I happen to have two. I don't have a teacher. Yakumo explained. Surprise flashed in Kakashi's eyes. He was surprised that Yakumo had such a solid foundation, since it was all his own exploration. You must have been practicing swords for a long time, right? How do you know? Your hands. Yakumo stretched out his hands, looked at the calluses he had developed over the past few days, and nodded silently. That's right, it's been a long time. My father once said that he is the genius of the swordsmanship of the Hitaki family once in a century. At this moment, Kakashi suddenly felt. Yakumo-san's talent may not be weaker than himself. Shocked, Yakumo actually lied without changing his face. Mori Masako loosened his clenched fists and stared at the back of the childhood sweetheart, as if he knew him for the first time. Konoha village, in the number 14 training ground. Nohara Rin, Uchiha Obito, and Mori Masako are playing a game of hide and seek by kicking the jars. This is a very simple and popular little game. The person in charge of catching only needs to touch the other two people with his hand to be considered a victory, and as long as one of the other two people kicks the jar, it is considered a victory. This is the collision of protection and destruction. Uchiha Obito thought that Hitaki Kakashi, who had a bug in the game, did not participate, and he would win very smoothly. Ideals are always beautiful, but reality is very skinny. He has lost 3 games in a row, no matter how hard he tries, he can't stop. Moriyazi kicked the can. He was completely crushed by this unremarkable girl in the class in terms of speed, reaction, and movement. Uchiha has a heart of earth, this is a game king that is equivalent to Kakashi, and what's more, she is not as beautiful as Rin. What are you thinking, Obito? Moriyazi suddenly approached Obito and asked in a low voice. Moriyazi is not as beautiful as Linear. Hey, no, what did I say? Uchiha Obito woke up immediately, staring at Mori Masako who was smiling with some vigilance. Just now, he seemed to be lost for a moment, and he directly said what he was thinking. Snapped. The tin can was kicked away by Moriyazi. Obito, you lose again. Nohara Rin said with a smile. Obito and Mori Masako also laughed, and the training ground was filled with joy for a while. Ah, I lost again. Happiness is theirs, it definitely doesn't belong to Kakashi. He really didn't expect that Yakumo, whom he had defined as a swordsman genius a few hours ago, would have such a poor learning ability. Remember that there is no disorder in the linkage between the steps, breathing, and moves. The knife moves according to one's heart, not in an overly rigid format. The pace is messed up, start again. Breathing is messed up, try again. Wrong. There is a problem with the connection. After Yakumo failed for the 5th time, Kakashi could only helplessly support his forehead, and his face was covered with bitterness under the masked black scarf. This may be the process of cultivating the mind. Just yesterday, he told his father that a classmate in the class peeked at him practicing swordsmanship. He didn't expect that what his father cared about most was the character of that classmate, not that the swordsmanship was stolen. Kakashi told his father what happened to Yakumo recently, and he got new homework. Inheritance should not have a portal view. The most important thing for successors to consider is character. This is the original words of Hitaki Sakumo. Konoha, the pattern is very large. Teaching others swordsmanship to prove what I have learned and seek new breakthroughs, this is my father's homework. But I don't want it to be so difficult. When I was learning, my father just practiced it briefly. Why can't he learn it? Kakashi looked at the forest in the distance full of heart, hoping that a black bear could break out and fight him. Kakashi, can you help me see where I am wrong? Yakumo's voice brought Kakashi's thoughts back to the right track. Not far in front of him, the genius he defined was using extremely messy movements to piece together the Hotaki sword technique. Breathing is messed up. 2 knives and 1 exhale, 2 knives and 1 inhale. Hearing this, Yakumo immediately began to adjust the breathing rate according to Kakashi's instructions. After dozens of practice sessions, Yakumo's physical strength reached the limit, and Kakashi's spirit also reached the limit. It's here today, and will continue tomorrow. Kakashi could see that Yakuma-san had reached the limit of his physical strength and said, I only need to rest for half an hour to regain my strength, and I can continue to practice for 3 hours. Yakumo replied that the sun had just fallen on the horizon, and it was still early. Okay, I'll give you a few more rehearsals, pay attention. This student may be a little dull, but he is extremely hardworking and reminds him of his father's teachings when he was a child. Don't underestimate those who have made progress several times, even if they only make a little progress every day, their future is equally brilliant. Pulling out the short blade, Kakashi showed his Hotaki swordsmanship skills and pace step by step. In order to facilitate Yakumo's learning, he deliberately slowed down a lot. In the blink of an eye, it was already dark. This is the end of the day's practice. At first, Yakumo planned to invite his friends to dinner, but found that the shops on the road were closed, so he had to give up, and each of them set foot on the road home. I didn't expect you to be able to persevere. Mori Masako was very surprised by the continuous swinging of the knife for several hours. The resolute appearance of the boy when swinging the knife under the moon is difficult to associate with the image of being timid and cowardly. Maybe it's because I like it. Like. People are always willing to go for what they like, aren't they? Yakumo looked at the moon in the sky and decided to go home to continue practicing basic swordsmanship. After all, there were only 2 days left before the task was completed. In the face of Yakumo's words, Mori Masako was a little silent for a while, and people would go for the people they like, not just things. Do you like to practice swordsmanship? I like doing tasks. Yakumo answered truthfully. Does the mission mean that after becoming a ninja, going to take the mission? Mori Masako continued to ask. Yakumo's willingness to talk to her is a good sign. Nah. On Saturday night, the familiar training ground. On the one hand is the playtime of laughter, and on the other hand is Kakashi frowning. Tonight, he proposed a new training method to abandon the moves and focus on the coordination of pace and breathing. When the two are unified, they will be brought back together. Entry. Now Yakumo's progress is very obvious, and he can already guess the mistake he made from the change in Kakashi's eyes. After 2 hours, he finally mastered the coordination of breathing and pace, and he only needed to combine his moves to learn the Hotaki swordsmanship. Slash, step, breathe. Striking, walking, breathing. Yakumo practiced Hotaki swordsmanship at an extremely slow speed, but he was extremely accurate. The 13th form did not go wrong. The 20th form did not go wrong. There was nothing wrong with form 21. The 24th form did not go wrong. Perfect, Yakumo completed the entire Hotaki swordsmanship moves, steps, and breathing exercises at a very slow speed. Congratulations, what you have to do in the future is to repeat the exercise countless times to make it instinctive, and you can use it as you like in battle. Kakashi immediately congratulated. Outsiders can't understand his hard work these 2 days. I owe you a big favor. Yakumo said very solemnly. Sharing I can perfectly replicate the movements and imitate the flow of chakra, and the white eye can also see through all the secrets of Hotaki swordsmanship, which means that the cultivation method of Hotaki swordsmanship is not a secret among the high-level Konoha. It's not that the Hotaki swordsmanship achieved White Fang's reputation, but because of White Fang, the Hotaki swordsmanship became a so-called secret technique. In fact, Obito also learned it for a while, but he was tired and gave up. This is the first time Yakumo has heard so many words from Kakashi, and the reason he said so much is to make Yakumo not take the teaching as a debt. On Saturday night, Kakashi opened the door and went home. The ancestral home of the Hotaki family occupies a large area, but it looks extraordinarily empty. There are only 4 or 5 people living there, and there are not too many people. During the Warring States period, someone once said, Heiji's family is less than 100, and if they exceed 100, they are invincible. Of course, there is a certain exaggeration in this, but this sentence is destined to 2 facts. The Hotaki people are very talented, but the number is getting smaller and smaller. Kakashi recalled the scene of Yakumo's introductory period in his mind, and planned to report the progress of his homework to his father later. In front of the entrance, Hotaki Sakumo was wearing black and carrying the short chakra blade named White Fang on his shoulders. I'm going on a mission. Father, pay attention to safety. The many joys that he was about to share in his mind were reduced to 8 simple words, which were his truest blessings to his father. Oh, by the way. Has Yakumo started? Hotaki Sakumo suddenly asked as if he remembered something. He started today. Not bad. I don't know if I'm praising Yakumo or Kakashi. Leaving these words, Sakumo Hotaki jumped up and swept across the earth like a big bird, blending into the night. Kakashi could see that his father cared about Yakumo, but he wouldn't ask if his father didn't explain it. Could it be that one day his father will bring him home? Kakashi, this is your exiled brother. Father, I made a small mistake back then. Kakashi hurriedly shook his head to shake off this absurd idea. After all, Yakumo's talent was so poor that he didn't look like a Hotaki clan. There is a plant called sea buckthorn in the desert. This grass will bloom beautiful purple flowers when it grows to its 5th year, but because the sea buckthorn will become more fragile with age and cannot adapt to the desert environment. Only those sea buckthorn grasses that have been carefully cultivated by people can survive 5 years to bloom beautiful flowers, which are called eternal guardians. At that time, Hotaki Sakumo found a 3-year-old sea buckthorn grass. Thinking of his wife who likes flowers, he decided to take care of an eternal guardian, but because he didn't know how to grow flowers, the sea buckthorn grass was dying day by day. At that time, he met Chunin Jing Guangzi, who knew flowers very well. Hotaki Sakumo saw the eternal guardian. But the lady who liked flowers died in childbirth. The old man who knew flowers died on the battlefield. Yakumo calmly walked into the house and gently closed the wooden door. Finally, he could no longer hide his inner joy, so he covered his mouth and laughed nervously. Ha 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 ha, heek. After completing the last 3,000 word review, Yakumo submitted 2 tasks. The familiar heat flows through the muscles and brain, making people feel like being massaged by thousands of hands at the same time. Understanding. Personal panel name, Well Yakumo age, 7 Constitution, 4.8, Stamina, Resistance, Recovery, Strength, 4.0, Load, Attack, etc. Agility, 4.0, Neural Response, Running. Intelligence, 4.8, Learning Ability, Mental Resistance, Chakra, 6.9, 10 points promoted to Genin, Personal Skills Passive, Chakra Refinement Acceleration Active, Water Bomb Primer 50/100 Acceleration Basic Swordsmanship Proficiency 20/200 Acceleration Hotaki Esoteric Entry 1/400 Acceleration Gold Coins, 500 The words on the panel, the swordsmanship taught by Kakashi is the real secret technique of the Heiji family, and this kind of favor is too much. The proficiency limit of 400 points directly proves the extraordinariness of this swordsmanship. It seems that the remaining gold coins can be used to upgrade the water bomb. Although Moriyasu called it watering ninjutsu, Yakumo can still see the extraordinary point of the water bomb. At least, don't worry about dying of thirst. The spiritual sense moved slightly, and the 500 gold coins passed away like flowing water. The relative number representing the proficiency of water bombs quickly became stronger, and Yakumo fell into the perception of ninjutsu. Ding! The gold coin deduction is complete. I wish you a happy game. Yakumo opened his eyes. The water bomb proficiency has successfully entered the proficiency threshold, and there is a small red dot below it. Active, water bomb proficiency 0/200 skilled, water bomb power gain 30% at the beginning. Yakumo remembered that he was rewarded with attribute points when he reached the proficiency level of swordsmanship, and the reward obtained by reaching the proficiency level in ninjutsu was the increase in power. A few minutes later, Yakumo calmed down his excited heart and began to practice the Heiji swordsmanship in the hospital, which was extremely slow. 2 hours later, there was no change in his proficiency. What kind of genius am I? In the bathroom, Yuyin Yakumo used a water bomb in just 1 second, and the light blue water ball hit the tiles on the bathroom wall and made a harsh sound. After all the fluctuations dissipated, Yakumo smiled silently as he looked at the tiles with cracks like spider webs. This kind of power can already injure people if you are caught off guard, and it may not be long before. It has conventional lethality. The conventional lethality here refers to a single blow that directly kills the normal genin or makes it incompetent. At night, Yakumo rarely got a good night's sleep. The next morning, get up. Washing up in the bathroom, scrambled eggs and hot milk. After eating a nutritious breakfast, Yakumo pushed open the door and breathed in the fresh air to start exercising for the day. Today's missions are relatively routine, the only exception is the first combat mission. Invincible defeats his opponent, Xiao Yuan Jiantai, in the hall test. Quest reward, 0.1 stamina, 50 gold coins for the mission. He must defeat Xiao Yuan Jiantai. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com would not hesitate to expose even a little bit of trump card. On the way to the morning run, Yakumo had already rehearsed the battle in the afternoon. In the afternoon, he will win. Yakumo speculates that his attributes in all aspects should be in a middle position in the class, and he can't compete with the major ninjas, but he can easily defeat the few civilian geniuses in the class. In the afternoon, the training ground outside the classroom. In the first round of duel, Kakashi and Sarutobi Asuma ended this battle more quickly, and Sarutobi Asuma's performance was not even as good as 10 days ago. This kind of feeling is like Sarutobi Asuma has not made any progress, but has regressed. But everyone understood that this was because Kakashi became terrifying. He subtly predicted all the reactions of Sarutobi Asuma and made judgments in advance. This kind of feeling is like a mature adult guiding children to practice. From the first move, Asuma Sarutobi has been firmly suppressed, and Kakashi decides when to end the battle. Perhaps sensing the huge gap, Sarutobi Asuma was no longer calm, and looked at Kakashi with a complicated look, envy, jealousy, and anger after being embarrassed. In the future, the test will be conducted by Uchiha Henjian and Hotaki Kakashi, and the test object after Sarutobi Asuma will be Hyagashin Kaa. Just at this moment, Keisuke Shimizu said, as if throwing a match into a dry well full of methane, and a sea of anger erupted in an instant. Why? Sarutobi Asuma stood up suddenly, his face flushed and asked, is he not worthy of being Hotaki Kakashi's opponent? Keisuke Shimizu did not give an answer, but continued to announce that the next group would start the test. In Yakumo's view, Keisuke Shimizu is using behavior to provoke the relationship between Kakashi and Asuma Sarutobi. What purpose did he do this for? The two people in the training ground were colliding fiercely, but Yakumo's eyes became deeper and deeper. He was thinking about the meaning of what Keisuke Shimizu did. Deliberately fanning the flames when Sarutobi Asuma lost his mentality. What's the use? Yakumo glanced at Sarutobi Asuma, who was furious, and then diverged his thoughts. No. Sarutobi Asuma is not worth anyone's calculation at all. What he really wants to do is to use the gossip at Sarutobi Asema's dinner table or his training complaints to provoke the relationship between Sarutobi Hizen and Hotaki Sakumo. This kind of provocation is carried out in a subtle way, constantly strengthening the confrontation between Kakashi and Sarutobi Asema, which in turn creates a gap between Sarutobi Hizen and Hotaki Sakumo. Precisely because of subtlety, this plan became more subtle and silent, and Hizen Sarutobi would unknowingly be somewhat dissatisfied with Hotaki Sakumo. The person who designed this plan must have a deep understanding of Sarutobi Hiden. He knew that Sarutobi Hiden was dissatisfied with Hotaki Sakumo, and then he tried to expand it. This plan, or what Yakumo sees, is just the tip of the iceberg. Multiple plans cooperate with each other and finally expand the dissatisfaction of Hiruzen Sarutobi, and then advise him in the name of attacking Heiji Sakumo's reputation. In the end, it is like the original book. In secret, he forced White Fang to death. Now is the 39th year of Konoha and there are still 2 full years before White Fang commits suicide and apologizes, and this plan with White Fang as the core will last at least 2 years. White Fang is blocking Danzo's way. As the most popular candidate of the 4 generations of Hokage at present, Shiroya has obviously become a thorn in Danzo's eyes. Then Keisuke Shimizu's identity is easy to guess. A member of the root. To carry out this kind of calculation, the root members of the 2 powerful figures in Konoha village must be absolutely loyal root members, and he can't use the background behind him to keep his mouth shut at any time. Yakumo, it's your turn. Masako Mori interrupted Yakumo's thoughts. Apparently Keisuke Shimizu had called his name several times, and was staring at Yakumo with a frosty face. Exist. Yakumo stood up immediately, his face full of hesitation and worry, as if he was suddenly called by the teacher while sleeping in class. It's your turn to come on stage. Keisuke Shimizu said coldly. Come on, come on. Yakumo hurried onto the field, and Xiao Yuan Jiantai had been waiting for a long time. Yakumo-kun, don't worry, I will do my best to avoid hurting you. Xiao Yuanjian scratched his head and said honestly. What a nice guy. But this time he's not going to lose. Then I'll start as lightly as possible. Don't hurt you. The seal of opposites. After the 2 completed their seals, they looked at each other for a few seconds. In the end, Xiao Yuan Jiantai couldn't hold back his breath and launched an attack, directly punching Yakumo's abdomen with a straight punch. Before they were taught how to fight, the fights of the first graders were like street gangsters, especially the use of weapons was prohibited in the first grade, which also made the fighting style of the first grade more simple and crude. Punch punch, foot to foot. Yakumo turned slightly sideways and dodged Xiao Yuan Jiantai's fist, and immediately raised his legs with 7-point force to target the softest abdomen. As long as he controlled the strength, he could solve the opponent with 1 blow, and then leave 3-point force. Cope with attacks and maintain body balance. The enemy took a half step behind him, dodging Yakumo's surprise attack, and he noticed Yakumo's change, from a random attack that had no rules at all to a chance attack. Now his agility, strength, and physique are fundamentally different from 10 days ago, and his 5 senses are also becoming more acute. At this time, his fists are clenched. As if drawing a circle on the spot, any attack from any angle can be captured very well by him, and he will surely fight against it. Xiao Yuan Jiantai continuously punched and tried to break through Yakumo's defense with frequent and intensive attacks. This is a very simple but effective tactic that was taught in class, but his disadvantage is that he consumes too much physical strength. Yakumo posed as much as possible to dodge the attacking fist, and he blocked it with his arm when he was in no hurry to dodge. It is also a stupid way of passively beating. He doesn't want to expose too much in front of Keisuke Shimizu, who may be a member of the root. Finally, a minute later, Xiao Yuan Jiantai's attack began to become slow, and there were loopholes in the dense fist shadow. He took this opportunity to attack, and the 2 entangled for another half a minute before Yakumo took the opportunity to trip his opponent and win the test. I'm sorry, Kenta-san. I've made some progress in my practice with Kakashi during this time. But he is not better than having several spots on his arms that have turned purple, which is definitely a narrow victory or bad luck in the eyes of outsiders. Yakumo, win. The seal of reconciliation. The two were separated, and Keisuke Shimizu's eyes did not stay on Yakumo too much from beginning to end. This is good. Hey, but it just hurts a little bit. In an academy that cultivates ninjas, battles are commonplace, and it's normal to get injured a little bit. After returning to his seat, Yakumo began to massage the bruises away. The sense of security built up these days vanished after discovering that Keisuke Shimizu might be a member of the Root. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Of course, the best result is that it's all his overinterpretation, Keisuke Shimizu, not a member of the Roots. After everyone completed the test, they returned to the classroom one after another to meet the final judgment. Keisuke Shimizu stood on the podium and glanced at everyone coldly. The temperature in the room seemed to keep dropping. Kakashi's performance is as good as ever. I won't comment too much here, but Sarutobi Asuma really disappointed me this time. Kakashi has mastered the rhythm from the beginning. You need to double down. Make efforts. Sarutobi Asuma bowed his head, whether it was because of shame or anger, but in short, Kakashi and Sarutobi Asuma would be rivals for the next 6 years. Sure enough, Keisuke Shimizu was deliberately creating an atmosphere of confrontation between Kakashi and Asuma Sarabi. I hope you don't let me down so much next week. Keisuke Shimizu began to analyze the test overall, and the students who were in the front were the ones who told the most. As for Yakumo, he only got a simple comment about continuing to work hard next time. He was also happy to be a little transparent in Keisuke Shimizu's eyes. After school, Kakashi, Obito, Harano Rin, Yakumo, Mori Masako went to the number 14 training ground together to practice. Today, Uchiha Obito was abused again in the test. I plan to ask Kakashi tonight for advice on how to fight. Along the way other people talk and laugh forward. Only Yakumo's eyes are dark and inexplicable. At this time, he has already marked Shimizuke as a member of the Root in his heart, so what he originally planned to expose on campus will have to be recalculated. In the 2nd grade, he will teach the throwing and use of kunao and shuriken. At that time, he will be allowed to fight with unbladed weapons. At that time, he may be able to reveal some talents in swordsmanship.